before to present Manuel, or after the before his presentation, I could like to introduce you the two musicians, the great musician that yesterday we have the premiere of Manuel's piece, and I think it will be nice to start with them before after the presentation, Manuel's presentations, and so I could like to say hello. We are very happy that they are here. Of course, sorry because they're coming from France, and all the concerts from other countries were canceled, and was an exception that they are here in Barcelona. So very happy because all the program was really very well performed and was planned for April, and they managed to come here. And yes, only I want to say thanks, and maybe you can talk a little bit how was the process with Manuel about the piece, or anything that you want to explain about the piece of Manuel's piece will be nice to share with the public.
Okay. Yes, first I want to thank Manuel for this such beautiful piece. It was a great experience for us.
Before meeting Manuel on internet, we first experimented. Because this piece is written for two guitars played with a bow, with bows. So for us, it was a totally new experience because we never played, quite never played with that kind of technique. So we experiment alone, yes. The using of the bow, and then we made the first rehearsal with Manuel to know what kind of sounds he had imagined.
And I think our awkwardness, it's like that.
Our goodness.
No, maladresse.
Awkward.
Maladresse.
Maladresse.
Ah, maladresse.
Awkward.
Our lack of ability.
Yes, it was a good thing because you can.
A good thing. Okay.
You can search and find sounds.
You learn it. Something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we.
But you were happy with our interpretation.
I absolutely, I absolutely happy with your approach during the rehearsals, and I do not think that you are not or your lack of abilities to this kind of approach. If you present a piece of Lachenmann, believe me, you are well prepared for any kind of things. So it's only during the first minutes of the rehearsal we have to make some points about the techniques or position, but after that, from me, there was no problem with nothing. So no, it's not true. It's not true. It is true that maybe when the first time, the very first time in which you have to face some different techniques or position or approach, you are more alert. You make more attention, so the result is absolutely could be could be better in front of other cases in where you are habituated or you have a lot of experience with techniques. So I'm absolutely happy with the rehearsal and surely with the concert, of course.
Yes, So only because I have another meetings, we are now in the factory and we have the rehearsal and more activities. And I want to say thank you to Manuel. And it was great to have your piece in the festival, the premiere from yesterday. So now it's your time to talk about the piece, to explain to the, here we have some students from the composition workshops, other public that can also be present in this meeting. So I say thank you, Manuel, and see you soon.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you for the opportunity, for all your persistence or your resistance in these difficult times. Bye-bye. So I don't know if we can start maybe, or we can wait for another couple of minutes.
I think it's a good idea to start now, because after it's another meeting.
Perfect. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much, the festival, Oliver, and all the organization for this opportunity. Thank you to Estelle, thank you to Philippe for this wonderful approach to my piece. And I'm really happy, not only with the opportunity to have a performance in an important festival. You know that it's always a great occasion in the life of a composer, but it's also because the idea to work with people that are really commitment with the thing that you are proposing, that could be maybe a difficult thing with new elements. This is not usually the situation in many festivals. So in this case, I'm really happy because the approach and the disponibility of performers and the organization is fantastic. I have not really very much time, and I prepared a presentation. We cover some aspect of this piece and also for former projects in which I worked with more or less similar approaches or focusing on similar point of interest. But anyway, we can go ahead and let's try to hear and to see some things. I prepared a presentation that I will like to share now. Let's do it. Okay. So I will share the presentation. Okay. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then we will test if the recordings are possible to hear. So one of my principal focus of interest in the last years of my trajectory is about expansions from the music score to another fields, and how these expansions allows me to imagine new ways to construct timbres or to construct my compositions. I will close my video because it's better for the connection. So one of the point of interest has to do with how to go beyond the field of the score and the music experience in the only acoustical dimension. this could be understood as a possible answer to a very old question in my mind, is about how music composition could embrace an idea of relevance. Relevance that could be subjects, methods, how the things become more communicative, on how to keep music meaningful. And a very basic answer in my case is about drawings. I make a lot of drawings on the first steps of a new project. My drawings before starting with the compositional processes are a way to connect these elements of relevance with acoustic situations, with scenic aspects. But it's also a particular way to, or a tool to imagine the sound, the timbre. So my drawings work as a filter. Densities, trajectories, continuity, fragmentation, considerations that deal with the global idea in which I am working, and that will be also useful to expand the score toward other territories. Sometimes the drawings or the spirit of these drawings remains onto the scores, especially on manuscripts. And it has to do particularly with some, how can I say, less controlled aspects. For example, the velocity of the tremolos, or fast rhythmic patterns, or microtonal oscillations. Such aspect that represents the articulative elements of pieces in front of more structural ones. On the last words that I face it, sometimes this irregular aspect take the form of semi-improvised devices. So my concern is about expansion and a sort of multi-dimensionality, and this idea has been gradually shaped with connections between music and other fields of knowledge. This connection could be understood as a sort of translation, organized by criteria of similarity or contrast. Before show you some examples, just a little consideration about this sort of journey that maybe each composer undertakes during his life. My personal journey comes from an initial approach more connected with mechanism and semi-automatic processes in music writing, arriving in the last years to an idea more close to an sculpture, an immediate or embodied things. So one of my current course is about connecting the interpretation of things with the experimentation in a very materic or concrete aspect of the instrument or voices, etc., etc. For example, the piece for the two guitars, Lidio, and other examples represent a strong programmatic or not musical content. It seems that this project needs something outside music to see the light. Sometimes the extra musical, we try to go inside within different phases of composition. So I started from drawings and then contaminating it with calculations, proportions, sequences, and other more conventional processes. That's the case of this piece, Lidio, inspired by the coup d'etat in Chile, the 11th September of 1973, and specifically about the murdering of Victor Lidio Jara Martinez in a concentration camp. The concentration camp that with the years was renamed as Victor Jara Stadium. this man was brutally punished, his fingers broken, his face deformed, and his body massacred with 44 bullet impacts. During his captivity, Jara experienced a deep suffering and frustration about the failing of the Salvador Allende's government, and he wrote a poem in a small piece of paper. The poem escaped from the Chile stadium in the pocket of other prisoners. So the poem is a meditation about the end of the project, of a project, or maybe about the end of the life of Victor Jara itself. An extreme moment that could be unfolded through these lines gave me the stimulus to imagine an interpretation of the most violent, even in the life of a man. And the pace, the transition from materiality, from the physical world to the transcendence. So my way to reflect about this transformation has to do with resonance. My approach toward this poem is not literal, not searching for coincidences or syllabic measurement, or including spoken fragments during the performance. I'm just trying to remark the notion of ruins that are present, in my opinion, also in the piece of Lachenmann that Stella and Philippe showed us yesterday. So that ruins that became instrumental or musical. Devastation, something that was broken. About someone that could not be longer able to sing. For example, at the end of the poem, the last paragraph, I will read, is in Spanish. Canto que mal me sales, cuando tengo que cantar, espanto. De verme entre tantos y tantos momentos del infinito, en que el silencio y el grito son las metas de este canto. Lo que nunca vi, lo que he sentido y lo que siento, hará brotar el momento. So it's not only about the fear and the possibility of death. It's only maybe in this point there is another thing that that punished me to go ahead with the composition. Is this idea of something that are transforming in another onto another dimension. So what I call this presentation the cuerpo presente is just to remark this condition of materiality and how our interpretations or thoughts penetrate in something concrete or physical. In this piece, the result cannot be understood without observing the hands acting onto the instrument. This could be defined as a main strategy to go ahead with the composition. Before maybe to show you some materials or some examples of the piece, I would like to show you one song of Victor Jara that had to do with some. It's not a music material in my piece, but it's only a kind of pretext or starting point. One a priori material could be considered the Leidian mode, that remember the second name of Victor Jara. But nevertheless, the F scale is not used as an harmonic material, but helped me to decide where fingers must act through the frets. And together with that, a sort of E minor scale is on the air, especially at the beginning of the piece. This choice takes advantage of the most resonant tonality of the guitar without scordatura, without the toning, that involved open strings. So there is some Jara's songs in which the E minor tonality is used, maybe for the same reasons of resonance. So let's hear a fragment of the songs.
Y mira la montaña, de donde viene el viento, el sol y el agua. Tú que manejas el curso de los ríos, tú que sembraste el vuelo de tu alma, levántate y mírate las manos para crecer, estréchala a tu hermano, juntos iremos unidos en la sangre. Hoy es el tiempo que puede ser mañana. Líbranos de aquel que nos domina en la miseria. Tráenos tu reino de justicia e igualdad. Como el viento la flor de la quebrada, limpia como el fuego el cañón de mi fusil. Hágase por fin tu voluntad aquí en la tierra. Danos tu fuerza.
Okay, this is not the best point of the song to interrupt, but anyway, it's only to make an example of this. In my opinion, open string approach that in somehow inspired me to define some techniques with the open strings. It is clear there is note elements or quotation of the songs of Victor Jara in the piece. But this idea of take advantage of resonance maybe could be taken as one of my concerns. So the techniques in the pieces are only a few elements. Basically using the bow, the bottleneck, and a small ruler to create some interferences onto the strings. So bow on different parts, close to the knot, on the bridge, or on a specific fret. Bow tremolos with the movement of the bow parallel to the strings. Harmonics also, conventional harmonics or a sort of glissando of harmonics that could be no longer understood as an harmonic itself. It's a sort of gesture. And that's it. And small variations of that. This is the ruler, the gentle touch, the low string, and create this kind of interruption of the vibrating, of the normal vibration of the strings. And this neck that creates this sort of tiny melodic elements that could be connected with this E minor atmosphere, and also with some notion of simplicity the songs. In this case of songs made with 3 or 4 chords. So that simplicity that is not banal, it has a strong or a deep sense of sound and music as a vehicle for a message that is represented in the lyrics or the text of the songs of Victor Jara. So speaking about some moment of the scores, there is a gradually placing of the things through the score in order to conduct the piece to a sort of dramatic or theatrical road. The first songs in the first pages alternate bowing on strings and on the strings part of the strings, with this almost melodic bottlenecks in events of the high strings. It's a sort of a contraposition between the distorted higher sound of bow and the melodic, so-called melodic, so to speak, aspect of the bottleneck. There is another song by the middle of the composition in which the interference by rollers on low strings appears, while the presence of the bowing is increasingly on frets with finger tremolo or with harmonics glissando or with normal or conventional harmonics, as well as bow tremolos. With the movement parallel to the strings. In somehow the beginning or the first song of the tiny cell was replaced by a notion of rugosity or instability. This is another aspect of the central part of the piece, with this glissando bowing on the last lower strings of the guitar to arrive at to the last 3 or 4 pages of the piece, in which bowing with microtonal glissandi appears. Microtonal glissandi by the action of the toning picks. And also for the very first time in my pieces, I include these repetitions, repeated bars, looking for remark something or making it more present with the repetition. Repetition could be understood also as a way to reach something like a ritualistic condition, as well as the idea of the resistance, material resistance, ideological resistance, something obstinate that persists and go ahead. At that point, musicians standing up in a sort of dramatical finale, lifting the guitars with with different objectives. On the one hand, let's say, theatrical hand, there is a provocation that breaks the situation of the course of the concert, even if the decision to make the guitars or to put the guitars on a table could be a provocation itself, or I don't know, something that could be different. But it's also this situation of standing up, the evocation of popular guitarists and songwriters at the end of the concert, when they say goodbye and thank you to the audience. On the other hand, on the other acoustic hand, the gesture looks for the bowing, looks for the expansion of the sound in a sort of wah-wah effect, with more intensity and through the different directions inside the concert hall. So it is not only a scenic resource, it's a sort of embodiment of a non-musical idea into a compositional or, or musical situation. Represent another dimension of how it's possible that something or someone that was brutally destroyed and cancelled as the life of Victor Jara could be transformed in something transcendental, no more physical or embodied, but ethereal, invisible, or eternal. Another maybe aspect that could be connected with theater or with drama had to do with the guitars lying on the tables. That reminds me the corpse at the Chile Stadium, where Victor Jara was found in a mound. The corpse, as the guitars lying, that can no longer sing, that cannot strum the strings normally, no chords or picks. The only way to still sounding is in a different way. So this combination of theatrical and acoustic aspect is actually an important thing that I would like to communicate to the audience beyond the mechanisms or how I organize materials, sections, developments. My interest here is about the aforementioned concept of present body, something that happens here and now, even if memory is a fundamental step. I'm trying to focus on the present gesture and the present moment. This idea of present has to do in a clear way with some Oriental approaches or philosophical approaches. Okay, I don't know. Okay, half an hour. So I don't know if there is some remarks or comments before maybe we could go ahead with a couple of examples or just wait to the end of the presentation and make some interventions. Don't know. No? Okay. So if you have enough time, I would like to show you two projects that maybe develop more or less the same point of interest. This project is about an exploration of the relationships between music and architectural space through the installation and involving contents linked with ritual and autochthonous people. It's a project of January 2020. We have enough time before the lockdown to do it in the United Kingdom. The incipit of the project has to do with this, with two ritualistic elements of Mapuche people, an originary community in the south part of Latin America, Argentina and Chile. The elements that I've selected of the Mapuche people are the rewe of Chemamul. There is in this picture this funerary totem used by the Mapuche shaman that is called Machi. And very, very big. It's a very tall sculpture. These sculptures are located in the Precolombinan Museum in Santiago, in Chile. It's about from 2 to 3.5 meters, I think. So it's very impressive experience to stay there. And the other elements is this small drum called kultrum. It's a ritual drum also, used normally, but the same machi, but the same shaman. And both objects are the basis of an abstraction process that in this case take the form of an installation, and also, of course, onto the composition process. There is a main gesture through all the parts of the project, a main drawing that could be defined as a cross, the same cross that you can see in the culture, that divides the patch or the drum surface into 4 sections. The 4 cardinal points or the 4 elements of the Mapuche cosmovision: our world, the world of the dead, the heaven, and so on. So in this project, I used also some text in Mapudungun, that is the Mapuche's language, in order to connect with a sort of character to the different section of the performance. That's text that I have now the slide of the text, and I prefer to not read in the Mapudungun because some Mapuche's descendants could be very angry with me. But there is a text that in somehow has to do with the current social crisis in Chile. Text that speaks about transformation, about, for example, that are used in the New Year of Mapuche cosmovision, and that could be interpreted or taken as an historical transformation, or even the end of a cycle. That in our case started with the coup d'etat in 1973. So in this photo and drawing of the scenic space in which the project was made, you can see some calculations, some measurements of the space that were used by the visual artists who take part in the project to propose a sort of, let's say, visual and audiovisual expansion of these ideas about contents in the text, about transformations, about crisis, and about intersection between different axes. The project involves, from a musical point of view, a Petzl recorder and a Helder recorder. The Petzl is placed at the center of this installation to remark that could be connected with the totemic condition of the Shemamul. On the other hand, the Helder recorder allowed the performance movements through the scenic space. On the balcony, on the right side of this drawing, you can see a balcony in which the performance played the part of the elder. This is a picture of the elements of the installation. Installation, stage design, scenography. That was made with 10 paper rolls settled in the form of tape. I'm reading now because it's a little bit complicated. In form of tapes with different dimensions. The paper rolls have been treated with techniques of manual serigraphy, cuts, and painting. The tapes show fragments on the score's manuscript combined with painting and cuts. The rolls are 1 meter high and have different lengths, between 3 and 5 meters approx. The tapes have been fixed onto the performance space, avoiding damages in walls and floor, using the balconies or columns. And here, basically, the work of the visual artist that I invited her to take part, not as a employee of the project, but as a fundamental part of the creative process. So she takes the first draft of my musical writing, my first notes, and proposes to make a scenography that rotates and mainly around this aspect of the music writing. So the focus of Laura's work was on the music writing. This is not my idea, and it's crazy because I am trying in my music writing to observe what happens when the eye scan or transit through the different points of a building, and at the same time, Laura, the visual artist, tried to translate the musical writing into these big rolls of paper. The elements of this paper are some cuts, some fragments of my writing, and some fragment of the Mapuche's text too. So the scores has this aspect. This is the first part in which the elder tenor recorder is played in a balcony of the scenic space. And as you can see, there is no linear or temporary concatenation or line of events. There is these boxes that could be ordered or placed in order by the performer in the way that she or he prefers. So the material is fragmented with only the indications about approximative durations and the duration of the pauses between the elements. Let's hear a fragment of this section of this page. Oops. So the compositional process is reflected in the score through a sort of indeterminate form approach. Music materials are presented in boxes that are to be setting and ordered freely by the composer. In analogy with the eye that explores as scans an object with several and indeterminate pathways. In the same way, the order of boxes could be decided preferably in real time, no prepared before the concert. And here you can see another page of the scores that have a very big difference regarding the first page. Okay, so we have 12 minutes. I will try to be fast. I'm going to the previous page, if I can. In this case, you see the boxes into this acoustic, or in that case, in the paper. In this case, you have the boxes also, but you have two big boxes in the lower part of the page that represents an order of airflows of the recorder of the pencil, and another small box that represents the movement of the foot onto the floor, creating this kind of air sounds. So in this case, the performer has to choose boxes according to the indication of the air flows. You have this kind of triangles or this kind of vertical lines that represent more nets and strong attacks of the air. Or in the case of the sort of crescendo, means also a crescendo of the airflow. That is the reason that there is no dynamics right in here, but the dynamic is a consequence of the quantity of the air going through the instrument. Okay, let's hear this example. Okay, I don't know if we have enough time to go to another project. Just I'll to other images of this interactive or interdisciplinary experience. Here you can see the people walking through the installation. It's not a conventional situation of a concert, but rather than this, is a sort of immersion in this through the installation of paper or text and fragment of the scores. You can see the box onto the floor with the music stand in which the Petzl recorder was performed. So maybe it's possible to see this cross that I was spoken. This cross of the maybe surface of the culture that it somehow is expanded here, trying to connect. We can say in analogy with the connection of dimension of this spiritual or ritual drum. Here there's a connection between dimensions of the space and the sound and the movement of this small light and so on. This is the last page of the score, in which there is no longer instrumental action, only the foot onto the floor and breathing, and the manipulation of some fragment of the installation, some pieces of paper that was left through the scenic space and that was used by the performer to create sounds with the paper. So I really would like to go ahead, but I might think that we have not enough time. I don't know if maybe we can give a space to resonance or remarks. Okay, this is the video. Okay, we have 10 minutes. Some comments, votes? No? Okay. Just a short presentation of this project in which I worked during the 2018. It's a piece for female vocal ensemble, a cappella voices, in a sort of intersection between vocal music and theater, music theater. The project started with study of an episode that occurs that happened in the last century, not in the last century, in the 19th century, in which people of the Kaweskar and Selkman communities were forced to participate in the so-called human sus during in cities as Zurich, Paris, London, Berlin, and Hamburg in between 1830 and 1840. I'm not thinking about a literal narration of this episode, but rather a collection of evocations, images, or pictures. The main road of the project is not a plot, but it's a line of meditations, fragments of shamanic songs, as well as a short testimonial by the descendant of those people, researchers and other people that faced the subject, this episode in recent years. So it's a project that has to do with text in original languages. Here you can see a transcription of the first part of the work with text in Kaweskar languages. in this case, I have the lucky I take a contact with a professor of Chile, of Magallanes University. His name is Oscar Aguilera, and he gave me some important directions about text, translations, and pronunciation. And here you can hear some of the correct pronunciations.
Grabación de palabra por palabra, parte de introducción 1.1. Quos, aselai, seplalayers, yalau, chapia, ka, yalau, aikuksta. Lancha está igual en castellano. Sa, acate, akser, chelkosakchalar, afqat.
So as you can see, or you can hear, there is some sonic condition of this language that was a wonderful source of acoustic development of the word. Considering the element of the episode of the human source and the sonority of the language. For me, it was very obvious that the dramatic connotation of the project was very present. Sorry, just 2 minutes to show you the final results of the project that takes inspiration also of some musicological research made in the Patagonian region, taking these elements of children's songs and dance that was founded and transcribed on the 70s, that could give an idea of how the Kaweskar music used like. This is a recording of the example 11, this juego cantado, o jugando redondo, playing in circles.
Kinakanayawa, kwarkwayawa, kinakanayawa. Tala kinakanakirap tala kwarkwayawa, kinakanayawa, kwarkwayawa. Tala kinakanakirap kita kinakanakirap kita. Kusis kwarkwalaka, kwarkwayawa, kinakanayawa, yasa kwarkwayawa, yasa kwarkwayawa.
So this is a clear idea to connect it to playing in circles and becoming no more conscious or awake. And it is something about it in the piece, but it's not in the same of the imitation of the circles. I taken, for example, some harmonic dimension of this material, and I used it only a few notes to build the harmonic texture, only 8 notes that had to do with the same note used there, and that is gradually used through the score. I showing you very fastly some drawings made by the same Laura Bisotti, the visual artist who collaborated here, making this kind of narrative element of the piece, and that was projected during the concert in form of video creation. The performance involved a movement through the space also, starting from this box in which the 8 singer started to sing, and then there is some movements through the stage. There is also a formal conception of the work defined in 4 episodes: the departure, the travel, the exhibition, and the death, and the rescue of these people who died in Europe during the exhibition for starvation or for another illness that they cannot have at the beginning of the journey. So this is a picture of the performance. There is some passages of the scores. Here you can say 2 contrasting elements, a block of 4 notes with different rhythmic profiles, using these 8 notes, but at this point is the beginning of the work, so we have only 4 notes: F, A, C sharp, and D sharp, and a resonance by air noise techniques. Another sections that in somehow re-elaborates the harmonic fields, but is constantly contaminating with the phonemes taken from the original languages, and another portion of the text that is in Spanish in order to maintain some condition of narrativity. Arriving for a, how can I say, maybe it's a sort of moment of, okay, we have to stop right now. So unfortunately, we have not enough time. I make my video and interrupt the sharing of my screen. And I don't know if there is some comments or thoughts about the pieces of, or the elements of that I try to show you.
So thank you very much, Manuel. Thank you very much for sharing your work.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure for us. And thank you.
It's my pleasure too. Thank you, everyone, to be here, and good luck with the rest of the festival, with the other concerts. And thank you again to Philippe and to Estelle and all of you.